Here are our three big stories for today. First one is nearly half of Americans think that the US is spending too much on Ukraine aid. I'm going to unpack this in an entirely different video tomorrow, but it strikes me that part of what's driving this is that people have heard about spending, and even though the spending didn't take, they think it's a lot bigger than it is. And we'll talk about the actual figure tomorrow. Okay, next article is European Broadcasting Union study exposes brutal Russification in Russian-occupied Ukraine, forced Russian citizenship and mobilization. In June 2023, victims of the massive flooding after the explosion of the Russian-occupied Kakhovka Dam were only rescued if they had Russian passports. Now, the Ukrainians don't want Russian passports, and any Ukrainians on occupied territory would be in danger of mobilization if they took Russian passports. There's also a threat of deportation. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree in April of 2023 claiming that Ukrainians on territory under occupation who had not taken Russian citizenship by July 2024 would be deemed as foreigners and would be subject to deportation. Now, I think deportation probably means into Russia, but if deportation meant out of the occupied territory, they'd probably want that. Anyway, so you see also other things like repression, education, and indoctrination. It's bad. It's as bad as it sounds. It's brutal. Okay, last story is this. Foreign intelligence head, Putin is convinced that return of Ukraine, rest of historical Russian lands, is possible only as part of global redistribution of the world. And I thought, that's interesting. What if we did redistribute the lands based on population? But that's not what he means. What he means is something more like redistributing to reclaim Russian lands. And moreover, the war against Ukraine is perceived by the Kremlin as an important but not the only front in Russia. When he's talking about historic Russian lands, he means something like this, which means parts of Finland, which means Ukraine, which means Georgia, Kazakhstan, Turkestan, etc. Okay, it might even be more ambitious to mean the former Soviet Union. Regardless of that, let's just for fun, for kicks and giggles, let's look at this. The population of the world is 8.1 billion people. The population of Russia is 143.4 million. And if you just do some simple math, that means that the Russian population is 1.7% of the world's population. And that means that they're sitting on a landmass of about 11%. Now, some of it's not habitable. Let's say it should be 9% or something like that because of the top around Antarctica and that sort of thing. Now, just for fairness, let's look at the population of the USA. It's 330 million people. And it's about 4% of the world's population. And we occupy about, if we look at this, 6.1% of the world's population. Again, we have Alaska, so let's reduce it down to 5% or something. We're pretty close. But what we actually should do is we should redistribute. I agree. And Russia should look something more like Kazakhstan if you were going to redistribute. But I'm pretty sure that's not what he meant by redistributing the global world. Okay, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time and your patience with me going through that. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.